You ever look at a giant redwood tree and just think, where did all of that come from? I mean, it's massive. It didn't just suck it out of the dirt. That tree, like almost all plants, built itself pretty much out of thin air and sunlight. It sounds like magic, right? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that magic trick and get into the incredible molecular engineering that makes it all possible.
So this is the big question. This is the fundamental challenge that really all life on Earth hinges on. How do you take something as fleeting as a ray of sunlight and as, thin as carbon dioxide from the air and turn it into the actual physical stuff of life, sugar?
Okay, so here's how life pulls it off. Photosynthesis uses this brilliant two-part strategy. Think of it like this. First, you've got the light reactions. This is the power plant. Its job is to capture sunlight and store that energy in these tiny portable chemical batteries. Then you've got the Calvin cycle. This is the factory floor, where those batteries are used to actually build sugar molecules out of CO2. You absolutely need both. One makes the power, the other uses it to build.
Right, so first things first. Before our factory can build a single thing, we've got to get the lights on and the machines powered up. So let's head over to the power plant and see how it traps the most slippery energy source there is, sunlight. It all kicks off with a single particle of light, a photon. Imagine it slamming into a pigment molecule inside this big protein complex called photosystem 2. In that split second, the photon's energy gets transferred to an electron, which just supercharges it, kicking it into a high-energy state. That right there, that's the moment. That's where light energy becomes chemical energy. But okay, now photosystem 2 has a hole to fill. It just gave away an electron, and it needs a replacement like right now. So to get one, it does something absolutely incredible. It literally rips a water molecule apart. This violence gives it the new electron it needs, but it also releases protons and something else, O2, oxygen. The very air you are breathing this second is basically the exhaust fumes from this tiny molecular machine. Wild, right?
So what about that energized electron? Well, it doesn't just hang around. It gets passed down a chain of proteins, kind of like a hot potato. And as it moves downhill from one protein to the next, it starts losing that energy it got from the sun. But that energy isn't wasted. The cell harnesses it to build our first chemical battery, a molecule called ATP. You might have heard of it. It's the universal power source for pretty much all life.
But the journey's not over yet. After using up most of its energy to make ATP, that same electron arrives at another complex, photosystem 1. And here, bam, it gets zapped with another photon of light, getting a second energy boost. Now it's fully re-energized, and its journey finally ends when it's used to create our second chemical battery, NADPH. You can think of NADPH as a high-energy delivery truck, carrying that precious energized electron off to the factory floor.
And here is the whole trip all mapped out. It's called the Z scheme because, well, it kind of looks like a sideways Z on this energy graph. You can see it all right here. The electron starts at a low energy level in water, gets a big boost from light, then it tumbles down to make ATP, gets another big boost from light, and finally gets captured in that NADPH molecule. So there you have it. The power plant is officially online. All right, our batteries, our ATP, and NADPH are fully charged and ready to go. Now let's take that energy over to the factory floor and get to the real engineering challenge, building sugar using nothing but carbon from the air. Now, the beautiful thing about the Calvin cycle is that it's not just some chaotic mess of reactions. It is a perfectly logical, structured process. And a great way to think about it is like a three-act play. Act I is called carboxylation. That's where we capture the carbon. Act 2 is reduction, where we pump it full of energy. And Act 3 is regeneration, where we reset the whole stage so the play can start all over again. Every great play needs a star. And the star of this show is an enzyme called Rubisco. And here's a fact that might just blow your mind. Rubisco is the single most abundant protein on planet Earth. Its entire job, its one monumentally important purpose, is to reach out into the atmosphere, grab a molecule of CO2, and pull it into the biological world. That's it. It's the gatekeeper. So the curtain rises on Act 1. Rubisco grabs a CO2 molecule from the air and smashes it onto a 5-carbon sugar that's already waiting. This creates a really unstable 6-carbon molecule that almost immediately just snaps in half. And just like that, carbon that was floating uselessly in the air is now fixed. It's officially part of the world of biology. On to Act 2, reduction. Okay, so we've got these new molecules, but they're not very useful yet. They're just carbon skeletons. They don't have any real energy. This is where those batteries we charged up come into play. The cell caches in its ATP and NADPH, pumping all that stored energy into these skeletons. And this huge chemical investment transforms them into high-energy 3-carbon sugars. These are the real building blocks of life.
And now for the grand finale, Act 3. Look, a good factory can't just make one thing and then shut down. It has to keep running. So here's the clever part. For every 6 molecules of CO2 that enter this whole cycle, only 2 of the final sugar building blocks actually leave the factory to be made into glucose. The other 10, they get put through this crazy complex reshuffling process just to rebuild that original 5-carbon starter molecule. It's all about making sure the production line never, ever stops.
So, after all that incredible molecular gymnastics, what's the bottom line? Let's do the final accounting and see what it actually costs in terms of energy to build one of the most important molecules for life.
And here you have it. This is the price tag. To make just one single molecule of glucose, the sugar that powers so much, a plant has to pull 6 molecules of CO2 out of the air, and to do that, it has to spend a whopping 18 molecules of ATP and 12 molecules of NADPH. It is a really energy-intensive process. But the payoff? Well, the payoff is basically the foundation of our entire biosphere.
Now, I know this all seems like it's happening at some crazy microscopic level, and it is, but the consequences are absolutely global. So let's zoom all the way out from the molecules for a second and just appreciate why this little chemical engine matters so much.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The Calvin cycle isn't just another biochemical pathway. It is the fundamental engine that drives life. It's the process that takes non-living, inorganic carbon and forges it into the very stuff that we and everything we eat are made of. It is the absolute starting point of the food chain. And this engine isn't just running in some giant tree in the forest. It is humming away inside every single blade of grass, and the tiny algae floating in the oceans, and every green leaf you see. It is this silent, universal, and incredibly ancient process that builds our entire living world, one molecule of sugar at a time. So we'll leave you with this to chew on. We've just walked through this elegant, essential engine that literally powers our planet, an engine that runs on sunlight and builds with air. But as we continue to change the chemistry of our atmosphere, as our climate shifts, how is this ancient and absolutely vital engine going to respond? Now that is a question worth pondering.